I'm Leon Todd for G66. Welcome to another Tuesday Tone Tip. On today's video, I want to show you some of my favorite MXR effect models in the Axe FX 3. I'm playing a 1977 Fender Strat straight into the Axe FX 3. I've currently got the Class A 30-watt Brilliant amp model dialed up with my free cab IR and a touch of gold plate reverb. Let's hear the starting point. I really like that edge of breakup chime that I'm getting on there. We're going to hear a few different amp models over the course of this video, but let's start there. MXR are renowned not only for having classic sounds, but also their enclosures have more or less become a standard format for a lot of other effect pedal manufacturers. One of the most recognizable would be the Dynacomp, which is a 2-knob compressor. There's actually 4 different Dynacomp models in the current firmware of the Axe FX 3. We've got classic, modern, and soft, and then a low CPU usage Econo Dynacomp. This one is great if you really want to hear the effect of the compressor. So I'd encourage you to crank up the compression, add a bit of drive and level on there, and then hear it on single notes as well as chords. Let's do that. So if you're someone playing pop, country, or funk, that's going to be an amazing choice on there. You can play around with the classic mode if you want a bit more squish and grit. The modern mode is a little cleaner on there. And I also like the soft mode. Again, experiment with them with different levels of compression and the drive on there. I like hearing the effect of the Dynacomp though, so I tend to crank them up. Next, let's hear arguably the classic MXR pedal, the single knob Phase 90. I'm starting with the Script 90 model, which is a model of the vintage 70s MXR Script 90. It's just got a rate control on there, so you can leave everything else alone and just play around with the rate. This into a cranked plexi is such a thing, right? Let's have a listen to what it does. Just a great way to add some movement either to chords or single note solos. You know, if you want to do the Van Halen thing, you already know about the iconic Phase 90s. So the Script and Block 90s on there just refer to different logos on the physical pedal, which often correspond to different circuit revisions. And then there's the Stripe 90, which is a model of the Eddie Van Halen signature Phase 90. Another Van Halen classic effect that he used was the old MXR 117 flanger. If you want to do the Unchained effect, then I'd suggest the rate around 0.4, 0.5 hertz. Crank the feedback up and set the depth and manual on there to around 1/3. This is so cool. If you're doing chugging low notes, you could assign a momentary control switch to the bypass so that you can just press on it for certain parts, but we'll hear it with it on all the time. Let's use this Plexi 100 watt 1970, and then we'll hear that FAS Stealth Blue again for some big chungers. It nails that jet plane swoosh on there without being too overbearing or cartoonish sounding. Again, it's so awesome having a classic model of an iconic flanger that was used on so many classic records. A more modern MXR pedal that has been really popular is the carbon copy delay, and there's a model in here called the graphite copy delay. I love this in front of a chimey amp to do a rhythmic style delay effect. One great thing about the Axe effects is that you can far exceed the maximum time available on the original pedal, which is very limited by the technology it's using. I think it's around 600 milliseconds, which is still great for an analog delay, but on here we can get multiple seconds. But I still think it shines best when you've got around 300 milliseconds of delay, you know, this kind of thing. I've swapped over to a Les Paul now because one of my earliest guitar heroes was Randy Rhoads, and when I learned that Randy played a Les Paul into an MXR Distortion Plus as a boost into a 100 watt Marshall, I had to get that pedal. I was really underwhelmed by the physical pedal, probably because I was running it into a clean amp, but using it to add some extra saturation and grit to an already cranked up amp model is a great way to emulate that early 80s kind of tone. Let's have a listen to the 100 watt Plexi on the bridge pickup of the Les Paul, then I'll bring in the Plus distortion. Now, MXR didn't just make pedals, they also made rack mount effects, and Dimebag Darrell is very well known for using the MXR flanger and doubler as a doubling style effect in his rig. In fact, Zakk Wylde still uses Dime's old flanger doubler in his current rig with Pantera. I was lucky enough to borrow one of these a while ago, and I shot it out with a bunch of the flanger chorus, and delay models in the Axe-Fx. And I actually found that using the analog stereo delay with a very low delay time, no feedback, and a slight offset with the left-right time ratio got really close in there. Take a look at the modulation section. There is a little bit of modulation happening in there. There's some EQ tweaks that come baked into this model. This can be a great one just to add some stereo width and depth. You'll see that it's actually just basically using that classic 7 millisecond stereo delay trick that a lot of people use, but with the character of an analog delay, we get there. And of course, all the fun begins when you start stacking these effects with one another. For example, we go back to scene 1 over here with the Dynacomp Classic. That sounds amazing. Ran into the Script 90 for a cleaner funk sound. Combine the Randy and Eddie approach and take the Script 90 into the plus distortion and then add a little bit of rhythmic style delay from the graphite copy in front of, say, a Plexi model over here. This is just going to give us that late 70s, early 80s epic rock guitar hero tone. Takes out all the struggle of having to chain together multiple pedals and dealing with power supplies, cabling, and excess noise. Furthermore, MXR have had multiple revisions of their classic pedals over the years, and some of them have become really collectible and really expensive. Having authentic models of those baked into the Axe-Fx makes it so much cheaper and easier to experiment with these classic tones. I'd love to hear about your favorite settings with these classic MXR effects, or what else you use to try and emulate your favorite pedals or rack units. If you've got any questions or suggestions for future Tuesday Tone Tips, pop them in the comment section below. Otherwise, I will see you all on the next video. Take it easy and go and make some glorious guitar noises.